As you know, South Africa has now already received 1 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, and might this vaccine still have some role to play, if not to protect against mild to moderate infection? And I think the data are fairly compelling that it will not protect against mild infection especially, but might there be reason to be optimistic that these vaccines might still be of some use in at least protecting against severe COVID-19? So in conclusion, this particular SARS-CoV-2 variant that evolved in South Africa probably is a consequence of the immune pressure under which the virus was placed because of a high force of infection that took place the first time around. This is not unique to the SARS-CoV-2 virus. It's one of the reasons why we have to vaccinate annually against seasonal influenza, as an example. But at the same time, I think these results are very much of a reality check in that we've been somewhat euphoric of the early results that were reported for COVID-19 vaccines, when vaccine efficacy was being reported as being 95%. And all of that vaccine efficacy was not against the variant that circulates currently in South Africa and that has now dispersed throughout the world or into many other countries. So it is time, unfortunately, for us to recalibrate our expectations of COVID-19 vaccines, as well as how we go about deciding to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic.
The AstraZeneca vaccine, Professor Mardi, did prevent some rather disappointing initial studies. But as he pointed out, there may well still be utilization, effective utilization of AstraZeneca vaccine. For example, we need to look at the cell-mediated immune responses. We may need to look at combination of AZ vaccine with other vaccines, which may in fact give synergistically a very good response. So I think we just need to maybe suspend use of AstraZeneca, but investigate it more fully to see, can we utilize it more effectively?
I'm going to present the findings of the Janssen Ad26 COVID-19 vaccine and what its implications are for South Africa. In South Africa, it's important to say the vaccine was 57% effective, where nearly all of the cases were due to the new variant, the B1532, which the B15135, which Shabir has been talking about. So this high vaccine efficacy, you might say, well, what happened in South Africa was consistent across all countries and all regions, and including in South Africa, where all the cases were due to the new variant, the B135 variant. And this is based on our sampling of available data, and about 95% of the data that we sampled has the B135 variant. J&J have applied for emergency use and have submitted a request for an EUA at the FDA last week. Already they are submitting applications for authorization to other regulators. And in South Africa, there is a rolling submission with SAHPRA. The submission started in December, and J&J regularly adds more data to the dossier so that SAHPRA can review this on a rolling in a rolling way. So how soon can we use this vaccine in South Africa? What are the next steps? So I want to tell you that we are in advanced discussions to further evaluate the investigational single-shot Johnson COVID-19 vaccine in South Africa in an accelerated fashion in the next few days. As the ensemble data has shown high efficacy against severe COVID-19, including this variant, especially with regard to hospitalization and death, over the next few days, we expect to announce a plan to expedite vaccinations using the Janssen investigational product in healthcare workers in South Africa.
So what have we learned about vaccines and the variant? Well, firstly, laboratory studies show that all vaccine-induced antibodies have greater difficulty in neutralizing 501YV2. That's across the board. The variant compared to the existing variants, we saw with Pfizer and Sinopharm that the decline in neutralization was small. With AstraZeneca, we saw that it was substantial. The clinical studies for moderate and mild disease, we saw declines in efficacy. AstraZeneca showed that, Novavax showed that, J&J showed that to a limited extent. No data on Pfizer, Moderna, Gamaleya, and Sinopharm. If we look at clinical studies on severe disease and hospitalization, which is likely to use both antibodies and T cells, there we see J&J has high efficacy at 85%. But we don't have data for this on the other vaccines. So How do we think about the next steps? What's the way forward? Well, we show that we've seen that COVID-19 vaccines from existing variants are very effective against the existing variant. And so we need to wait, and at some point we will see in the near future, and we expect this pretty soon, that the next set of vaccines will be made from the 501YV2 variant. And so they're likely to also be effective against the 501YV2. We're expecting two kinds of new vaccines. The first are 501YV2 boosters. We're also going to see a next generation of vaccines that are intended to actually be much broader. So they will cover you not only against all the current variants, but also what are likely to be future variants. And that we're going to see emerging over time. That will take a little longer. And so the AstraZeneca trial, the AstraZeneca vaccine rollout, needs to be put on temporary hold while we get the clinical efficacy information. And the way we can do that is through the new approach to rollout, which Professor Gray outlined so well, that with every vaccine that we are now going to roll out, we can think about it as a two-step process. It's a stepped introduction of each vaccine. The first step is to roll it out to a fairly large number of people in order to assess what the hospitalization rates are. And we can do that because we have a system in place that monitors all admissions. We would need to collect vaccination status in that database in order to collect this information quite quickly. And as we make progress with the rollout in step one, if the hospitalization rates are acceptable, we then continue and move on to step two, which is the wide-scale rollout. If the vaccine shows to not be effective in reducing hospitalizations, then we would need to offer those individuals another effective vaccine, either a booster of that vaccine with the 501YV2 booster, or to give them another vaccine. So